money. That's multimillionaire or billionaire level today, and this continued for decades. Even after the Opium Wars, which China fought specifically to stop the opium trade, American firms kept smuggling. They just got better at hiding it. Let's talk about what this opium did to China. By the 1830s, an estimated 10 to 12 million Chinese were addicted to opium, about 10% of the adult male population. The addiction was so widespread it crippled the Chinese economy. Silver that should have stayed in China was flowing out to pay for opium. The Chinese government tried to stop it. They appointed Commissioner Lin Zexu to end the trade. In 1839, Lin confiscated and destroyed 1,000 tons of British opium in Canton. Britain's response? War. The First Opium War, 1839-1842. Britain won, forced China to sign the Treaty of Nanking. China had to pay reparations, open ports to British trade, and cede Hong Kong. The treaty didn't explicitly legalize opium, but it made enforcement impossible. So the opium trade expanded. American firms benefited enormously because during the war, British firms couldn't operate. American firms like Russell and Company took over their business. After the war, both British and American opium smuggling resumed at even higher levels. The Second Opium War, 1856-1860, happened for the same reason. China tried to stop the trade. Britain and France went to war, forced China to legalize opium and open more ports. American firms again profited during and after the war. The human cost in China was catastrophic. Millions addicted, families destroyed. The economy wrecked. But in Boston, New York, and Connecticut, American families were building mansions and founding universities. Here's the most infuriating part. The same families that made fortunes selling opium then turned around and criminalized drugs for everyone else. In the early 1900s, America led the international movement to ban opium. The Hague Opium Convention of 1912, the Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914. America pushed global drug prohibition. Why? Because by then, American elites had already made their money. Chinese immigration to America meant opium dens were opening in American cities. The elites didn't want competition. They didn't want American workers getting addicted like Chinese workers had. And they certainly didn't want anyone pointing out that their own fortunes came from the drug trade. So they criminalized it, painted opium users as criminals and degenerates, and buried the history of how their own families had mass-marketed the same drug to China. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whose grandfather made millions in opium, signed some of the toughest drug laws in American history. The families that got rich from drugs spent the 20th century prosecuting and imprisoning people for drugs. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. And here's what makes it even worse. The history has been whitewashed. Most Americans have no idea that the Delano, Astor, Forbes, Perkins, Russell, and Cabot families made their fortunes in opium. Go to the FDR Presidential Library. The Delano family's opium connection is mentioned in one small exhibit, downplayed as trade with China. Go to the Astor family history. Opium is barely mentioned. It's all about furs and real estate. The Forbes family history. They talk about railroads and magazines, not opium. Yale University mentions Samuel Russell as a benefactor. The opium business that funded him? Not mentioned. Harvard's Cabot House, named after the Cabot family, their opium trading? Not in the official history. The whitewashing has been systematic and thorough. These families used their wealth and influence to rewrite history. They donated to universities on the condition that certain facts were omitted. They controlled historical narratives through foundations and endowments, and they made sure their descendants grew up never knowing the truth about where the money came from. But the evidence is undeniable. There are shipping records, letters, account books, historical archives in China, Britain, and America. Researchers have documented it. Books have been written. The Delano Influence by Daniel W. Delano. When America First Met China by Eric J. Dolan. The Opium Clippers by Basil Lubbock. Yankee Traders, Old Coasters, and African Middlemen by George E. Brooks, Jr. The proof exists, but it's not taught in schools, it's not in the museums. The average American has no idea. And the families want to keep it that way. Because if people knew the truth, it would destroy their carefully crafted reputations. It would raise uncomfortable questions. If the Delano family got rich selling drugs that destroyed millions of Chinese lives, how is FDR a hero? If the Forbes family made their fortune poisoning China, why do we celebrate Malcolm Forbes? If Yale's Skull and Bones was funded by opium money, what does that say about American elite institutions? The cognitive dissonance would be too much, so the truth stays buried. Here's the comparison they don't want you to make.